Je vois dans la gestion de projet, aussi dans justement.
And I'm just recording mostly for us to be able to send this PowerPoint presentation to the other attendees and also for you to refer to if you aren't writing down notes fast enough. But I'll start off with introducing myself. I already know you, Susanna, but I don't think I know Minnie. My name is Bunmi. I'm a practicing midwife in Ontario and the midwifery technical expert here at CAM. And I'm really excited to introduce this opportunity for sort of IBPOC midwifery researchers to have the opportunity to have some funding potentially for some of the work that they're doing. And so I'll explain it a little bit in terms of how we got here. It was a bit of a long, convoluted way, but I'll try to explain that. So here is the agenda. So I'm going to do a welcome and a land acknowledgement. I'll explain the project, which is called Project Forward, along with the opportunity that I just mentioned, what types of supports that there are, and any questions and sort of comments that you might have, and I'll try my best to navigate the answers to that. In terms of the land acknowledgement, so CAM is its head office is situated on the unceded territorial land of the, and I'll apologize, this is the first time I'm pronouncing it, the Ganagwehaga Nation, part of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. We recognize the Ganagwehaga Nation as the custodians of the land and the waters of Jojagwe, which has long been a gathering place for diverse First Nations, including Algonquin, Anishinaabe, Abenaki, and Huron-Wendat. We recognize the historical and continued violence of settler colonialism and are committed to learning and working together towards reconciliation through collaborative, bilateral, and reciprocity between I don't know what's happening with my slides, between beneficial relationships with Indigenous people and communities. So I'm just going to quickly explain what Project Forward is, and I do see someone else that is in the room as well. Welcome. Project Forward is actually a very large grant that CAM sort of started in March of 2023. It was a delayed start, so myself and a few of us were hired May onwards. So we've been trying to sort of crunch together a lot of these project objectives over the last few months. And so this is one of them. The primary objective of it is basically to highlight and celebrate IBPOC academic excellence and focusing on advancing racial equity in Canada. So you'll see that there's a few projects that are coming out from it. If you are part of the CARM group, a lot of the projects that CARM is involved with is also through this project itself. In terms of this project or this opportunity, which I've aptly named it 13 different times. It first came out with the hopes of similar to another program that we have with a different funding stream, which was to provide an opportunity to give micro grants to various researchers, IBPOC researchers within the equity stream. However, Health Canada didn't really allow us to have that. So we sort of found a way in which we'd be able to support IBPOC researchers and students working in this area through an opportunity where participating and showcasing your work, there would essentially be a remuneration between a value of $1,000 to $5,000 in hopes of supporting you in terms of your research, and most specifically, if you're at the time of publication, to be able to get that work published. And that's in the acknowledgement of the fact that publications are really hard to fund, and there are not a lot of opportunities for racialized researchers to be able to get their work published without having to tap into other means and funds. And many of you probably are well aware of that. The deadline itself is January 26th, so in a week or so. And the application itself is on that link, the simple survey link that you'll probably get on the email. You've probably seen it on our website. It seems pretty simple if you've ever filled out any applications or grants in the past. It's not how do I explain it? It's not a trick of why it was simple. The reason why we wanted to keep it simple was so that we could increase the accessibility of racialized academics and students to apply for the actual opportunity, knowing that we're all exhausted and we are sort of at the end of our ability to stretch ourselves more thin. So what we wanted to do is to ensure sort of a fast track ability for you to be able to apply for the actual opportunity itself. So you'll see that one of the questions is only asking for 250 words. It's not that you need to, somehow condense your abstract down to a very small amount because we're being nitpicky about it, but really it's about to ensure that that the restrictions of the application isn't what's going to hinder you from applying. Any questions there at all? Okay. So the eligibility and the eligibility that we wanted to do is very flexible. So if there's certain parts that you're like, I don't really know if I qualify for that, best to still apply. But essentially it's for researchers and students who identify as IBPOC in Canada. And so that's not going to be, questioned or second guessed. It's who identifies as that. What we really want is the focus of the research have an impact on equity deserving communities. And that's a very important factor in the Forward project because we want to make sure that we're showcasing work that will influence sort of these communities, these racialized communities out there. And they could be various ranges. It does not need to be primary research. It could be, a lit or scoping review, any form of sort of ability to bring forth some of the needs and sort of addressing some of the equity deserving communities. One of the items that is important to be part of this program is that you need to be committed to be able to do a webinar with us in February sometime. So it would be a time in which we would get all of the participants together to select a date that is there and what type of capacity they would like to participate in this webinar. So for me, as someone who's coordinating this, I sort of picture, okay, if we have 4 applicants, that might be a 15-minute thesis. If we have 6 applicants, then we might do a 5-minute thesis, PhD thesis type of thing. But essentially the idea is that it gives you an avenue so that you can write it on your resume and write it on your CV of some sort to say that you participated in this showcase specifically for midwifery. So that's another piece which we know the more grants you get, the more sort of webinars you're participating in your research, sort of the more that you can use that to get more grants and more opportunities that go forward. So that was also an important piece. Another one is that we're hoping to showcase some of the work that you are doing on the CAM web portal. And that's also the piece of a lot of academic institutions don't always prioritize the work of students or sort of researchers to the degree that they should in terms of the work that they do. So it's not uncommon to see sort of supervisors with the portfolios of their students, but there isn't a lot of in-depth information as to what they're doing. And so what we want to do at CAM is to be able to feature some of that work. And as your work grows, or in the case if your objective of this opportunity is to publish, once that publication is through, that it actually be placed and housed on our CAM web portal if allowed by the sort of publishing agent. We asked that the research be in the stage of close to publication or has been or will be published within the next 3 to 5 years. And the idea behind that is to ensure that, one, that we understand that it takes a long time to publish. Any peer review can take a year or 2 to do, or, if you're still in that writing stage, there's still time for that to be done. But we didn't want people who had publications that were more than 5 years or who are no longer doing research and not actually interested in publishing or showcasing their work. So we had to put some parameters, but like I said, if you're 5 years and 1 day over, I'm not going to be picky about that, right? The idea of this is to be able to showcase the racialized midwives and students that are out there and the work that they're doing. In terms of samples of research, So one of the things we wanted to do with this grant originally was actually not only allow for open access or sort of publication of work, was that we were hoping to be able to fund some projects. Sadly, that's not something that we can do in this round of funding, but we're hoping that if people wanted to publish some of the work from the communities that they do or the organizations that they want, they could do that in terms of the piece that we have here, which is, say, for example, work that you've done in health inequities and maternal access. There are midwives that are working in combating racism. So there's different topics. I would definitely say, like, there isn't a topic that that wouldn't not be considered an application is what I would say. Susanna, do you have a question?
Yeah, Bhumini, I'm following what you're saying, but I can't see the screen. I don't know if there's
Oh,
anything there, or I see it, but it's broken.
is my screen broken? Okay, let me
Sorry.
reshare. No, it's okay. Let's see. Where is my PowerPoint? Is that it? Can you see it? Is that better? But that's my presenter view, right? Let me see what I can do. I don't actually have notes, so I don't even know why I have presenter view. So, because I actually know what I'm supposed to be talking about. Hold on. Okay. Thanks for telling me that.
And I have questions, but I think I'm gonna ask at the end.
Yeah, that's fine. I figured a lot of people will have questions because it's, I made it very vague for a reason so that people can apply at any stage. Okay, so can you see this better now, Susanna? Yeah, okay, perfect. So these were just the questions in terms of like what the research examples that we put on the call out. But like I said, don't feel restricted in terms of like what your actual thesis may be or what you're doing in your undergrad program, what type of things are on there, like be willing to sort of still apply regardless. But essentially, like I said, the application is fairly simple. There's really a few questions just to ask things like your demographics. So do you define yourself as racialized? What province you're in? That type of information is there. But otherwise, there's really only two parts to the actual application, which is an abstract or summary of your proposed publication. So I would say if you're not completely at the stage of publication, I usually say, like, what are you planning to do to sort of get your message out there? So in 250 words, what are you actually doing? Can you summarize that? And then one of the criteria of the actual opportunity is to show that it has impact on equity deserving communities. So sort of expanding on that abstract. So it's very little words. I know that, like, if you've been doing research for a while, it's going to be hard to condense, but I really want to iterate that it's not for the purpose of, we don't actually want to read the things that you have. It's not because of those things. It's just to make it very simplistic for us on our side to say, yes, this is someone who's doing research. Yes, this research is within equity deserving communities. So I sort of want you to see that as more of what the application is for, and not so much of us being like, oh, should this person be a presenter at our conference? Does it align with what we want to do with the webinar? It's not for that. It's just to ensure that it meets the criteria of what the grant is for, and how it's supposed to sort of like an idea of what you're doing for your research. In terms of the other piece, the money, it's a big range, right? And I don't actually ask how much you need. And that's something that we will sort of see with how many applicants we have, because we want to know what you really want at the stage you are in terms of your research, right? So for example, if it's very clear that you're not at the stage of a publication, but you might be actually doing a course or you're still in school, it might be something where we might say to you, Susanna, how much is it for your course this term? We might be able to divvy up that money in that way. So that's sort of how we want to gauge it is, we have this pool of money. How are we going to effectively use it to empower IBPOC researchers and students to be able to sort of put their foot a little bit more forward that they might not have without this grant opportunity. Okay. The thing is, with this actual money that we have, we can't really say it's a grant, right? To the individual person. So we're sort of seeing it as, if you participate in this, this is sort of the compensation that you have. In terms of the support from CAM, which is going to be a little bit unique compared to other programs, is that there's going to be support from my end. So if your application, you're having conflict with yourself, being like, is this good enough? Is this not? I'm not quite sure. Like, feel free to message me and sort of be like, is this worth it? Is this how I can do a phone call? I can read your application, do all those pieces. Okay. We're all busy. I acknowledge that. For the webinar itself, I'm happy to help with the presentation prep. That is in the case of, say, for example, you're just like, I'm not very good at putting together PowerPoints. Well, you can also get me to help you with it. I might not make a very good one, but the idea is that it's still allowing you for you to showcase your work, but having that support to be able to get that PowerPoint together, practicing with us. Is there other resources? The general rule I have is ask and we can see what we can do, right? So I don't know what stage of research you're in or whatnot. Is a day not working? Is it better for you to actually do sort of a voice recording, a video? Those are the types of things that we're willing to do with individuals to increase the accessibility of it. So if you're feeling like you can't present, you can't do other aspects, I do ask that you reach out and we try to make something work, okay? I have my contact details, my email, my phone number, the deadline, the application. So just a reminder, it is due on the 26th, and we're hoping that we can get this opportunity sort of expanded next year in some sort of way. But for us to show that we have interest, we really hope that everybody that is here today will apply and sort of encourage other people within the IBPOC research community to apply as well, regardless of like what stage they may be in terms of their education and research. So I should have a slide that says questions and answers. So anyone out there, I know Susanna has some, but I'm happy to answer some questions. I have Minnie's hand up first, so I'm happy to answer your question and then go to Susanna after.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Yeah, this is very exciting. So I'm second year part-time at TMU, and I wrote a paper for social justice last year.
Yep.
And it was about like modesty, the right to modesty in perinatal health care. So it has to do with like religious communities and often racialized communities.
Yep.
The paper is like 20 pages, double-spaced long. And I don't know if it's publication ready, but I've been encouraged to get it published. So I'm kind of in the early stages of considering how to even start. And so like a friend of mine who's in the program, she has a master's in public health and she's involved in research and publications already. So I was going to get her help. So I'm just wondering, at this stage, would it be appropriate to apply for this?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Like, because like you've got the content that you're planning to publish, you don't actually have your actual outline, because usually when you choose a place that you want to publish, there are usually restrictions to it, right? So it'll be like, okay, you only can have 3,000 words. You can only have like this type of table, this type of whatnot. So we don't expect everyone to be at that stage, right? But you might say, okay, I'm going to apply for this, and these are my thoughts of where I would like to publish, right? So Midwifery Canada might be somewhere. I might actually be interested in, talking to Carlene at TMU to see what her ways of sort of finding that answer. Basically, you're showcasing that you are doing research, you're doing all that. What you end up doing with that money is up to you.
Oh, okay. So the second question would be then, would there be like mentorship to help with figuring out this whole process and actually getting it published?
Yes, so I would be there to help as much as I can. So I'm new to the midwifery research sphere. I'm more in the science, sort of molecular side. So I would be able to traverse this world as much as I can. The biggest thing is one of the pieces that CARM is trying to do is create mentorship. So what I would do is go, okay, this is your topic. Is there someone else there that we can connect you to, right? So we're pretty connected in terms of networking. If there's a specific documentation that is necessary for you to be able to go forward in publication, you know, like I said, just ask and we can help with that, right? But otherwise, there is that mentorship piece in whatever capacity that is. There isn't a streamlined way. So I can't be like, okay, here's this package you get, and this is exactly what you get from CAM. It really is a feedback loop as to what you might need, right?
Okay, so just
sometimes, yeah. Yeah.
I was just going to ask, so this is the first time this program is being offered or run?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So
okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, we just got the funding March of 2023. And this was one of the objectives that we are hoping to do. We are hoping to run a larger IBPOC conference sometime next year. So what we would want is to encourage the people who are applying for this opportunity to be able to also showcase their work at that. But given the fact that like myself and Faduma only got hired in May, we've been like scrambling, trying to do all of this stuff. And so we put that aside in hopes that maybe we can pair it with the CAM conference next year or doing it individually, similar to what NCIM does. So there are going to be more opportunities, and that's just from our side in our experience where like we are just sinking in the academic world of white people, right? And so what we want to do is create these funding opportunities for like yourself, students who are doing really good work, but might not have the social connection for publication, or who might, you know, not quite know what the avenues to publish are. Yeah. Does that answer your question, May? So how do you join
Oh, yeah,
CARM?
sorry, I was trying to type my
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
so
answers. Thank you.
Yeah, so CARM is the Canadian Alliance of Racialized Midwives. It is just starting to like grow. So just keep an eye on the CAM newsletter. We haven't really met since CAM, and that's just because Fabian, who is the lead, we're trying to, there's a lot of pieces that do it, but just keep an eye out. That reminds me to remind Fabian that we need to do another call out to get members to join. So thank you for that. Susanna, your list of questions?
I'm sorry. It's not a list, it's just a question. So
Yeah, no, I'm just joking.
I wasn't gonna be
Go ahead.
very.
Yeah.
So I'm finding it, I don't know, maybe I'm pushing it too much, but my research question, I'm a PhD candidate, and my research is more related to midwifery. And of course, over the analysis process that I'm starting now, of course, there is no such unnecessarily information much about.
Oh, I think we've got a disconnection. Adawu, do you have any questions while Susanna tries to reconnect?
My computer died. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay.
Yeah. So how do I know that my research question is an alignment with the purpose of this call? Because the finalized product is not there yet. I'm hoping that I will get something related to equity. And then, but part of this research project is not only in Canada, but abroad. And that's because as a BIPOC person, I'm not from Canada, and I have that positionality on me too. So I'm doing a multiple case study, and it combines Canadian and international work too. So maybe this is a question that I have to address with you directly.
Well, I can answer that. So my response is like secondary data or sort of like data that potentially comes out that has any sort of equity piece would be fine, right? And as I mentioned, it really depends on like, how do I explain this? So what we really wanted was to be like, are you basically a researcher and are you doing something that is going to have an impact, right? Which we know from your work is going to be that. Yes, it's midwifery specific and you haven't done all of the data metrics and the analysis of it, but the piece of the fact that you're a racialized person in research in a white dominated field is also something to really consider. So like I said, this money isn't specifically just for publication. So for yourself, if it's one of those things where it's like, okay, I have tuition that I need to pay for, this is something that will allow me to continue to do the work that I need to eventually publish. And then we'll see you in like 2 years with a publication or your thesis is in place and then we put it on the website, right? So it's just, or if we remember if the website is still there in 3 or 4 years. But like, I don't want you to overthink it, Susanna. Like your PhD is probably way more complicated than the 250 words that I need from you. So just really thinking of it. Or the other thing is what you speculate the equity data will be. Right? Like you don't need to necessarily be like, of the 4 case studies, we see that this person or the disparities between these 2 multiple sites. Like you don't necessarily need that. You could say from my experience, working as a midwife within these 2 communities or whatnot, I see this and this is what we're hypothesizing. And the data has been collected and now we're at the data analysis section.
Yeah. So, and this is my last question. That is one of the big projects that I have going on, but then I finalized scoping review. But the result about it was that it's actually no data around equity. So that was my one of my results there. That there's no such as research around demographic. Would that count as not having data or not having enough research about it?
Yeah, and I think it's going to be one of those things, Susanna. It's like, what are you planning to present for your webinar for us, right? Like if you have 15 minutes, what are you going to present? And I think whatever that is, put that as your thing, right? Because we need to be able to say, you know, Susanna is a researcher. This is what she's planning to do. This is what we're going to showcase about her. And then when she gets to whatever stage in her career, we might be able to possibly put her on our website to say that this is what we found, or this is a blog that we did, right? Because the idea is so that, you know, when someone goes and Googles you, it's not only about citation numbers now too, right? It's like, where can people engage? If people are looking for people, they might say, actually, Susanna is a good person to ask to do a presentation, right? Like, so that's sort of how we're approaching this like project in general, is how do we empower racialized midwives to actually like be forefront in the experiences and the research that we know we can actually do really well in. Right? We just don't have the opportunity. I think like the expanse of what you're doing is probably more than enough. It's just, once again, a lot of research isn't equity focused either, right? So that's another piece. But yeah, I would definitely say, think of what you would want to do for your presentation. And then we can cross those bridges in terms of like what the funding ask is. Like, so my thought of what I was going to do was get all the applications and then say, what is your funding ask? Right? Rather than going from the beginning saying, okay, like if I gave you this amount of money, what are you going to ask? Most of the time, from my experience, I always ask for the top dollar, but that might not necessarily be what you need, right? And so that's sort of how we sort of want to broach it, is sort of what is everyone's applicants' needs. Right? Like, so it might be Minnie needs, enough to be able to start some of her research or start her publication process, but needs to cover some of her tuition so that she can do 3rd year of MEP. And so that's what she's asking for. You might be like, I actually want to do a course that is specifically for this, but I don't have the money because I am now doing this. That's what it can be used for. It doesn't necessarily need to be for that publication. You don't need to be right at that stage. Hi, Claire.
Yeah.
We're in the Q&A now. You missed half of the presentation.
My last question is, when in February is the expecting for this webinar to happen?
So what I would do is ask everyone to give me days, but we're expecting it to be the end of February because I need to, for grant purposes, to do the event, do a post evaluation of it, and then submit it to them by March 31st. So it's a crunch time, I know. This grant has been like dying at my doorstep. I have like 13 iterations of it. And it's because the ministry, Health Canada was not interested in giving a grant. So this is how we're sort of bypassing and sort of allowing for us to give money into the hands of researchers for what they want to do with it. Yeah.
Okay,
Minnie?
thank you. I'm done.
Yeah. Okay. Minnie? If you're talking.
Sorry,
Okay.
I was having a hard time unmuting, I mean. Yeah, so my question is just clarifying. So when we apply, we're just giving an outline pretty much of what we want to research. So I don't actually have to submit like the paper I wrote.
No.
Okay.
Just the,
And then
the 150 word question and then my
summary.
200 word. I don't want to read any more than I have to because I just need to get this through. Like I said, it's more to vet the fact that you're a researcher, you're doing research, you identify as IBPOC, all those categories. I'm not going to be picky. If you really want me to read your document, I can. There's an attachment thing. But not like 14
No,
of them.
I'm like, yeah, I don't have to, then I won't. Because then I'll just present on like the major things, I guess, at the webinar if I'm selected. But yeah, okay. So then, yeah, so that's it. So it's not actually submitting a paper at all. It's just the idea for, okay, great.
Yeah, we want it to be super easy, super no stress, but clearly everyone in this room is overthinking it. You don't have to overthink it. Okay.
Okay.
Claire, do you have any questions?
Sorry, guys. I'm sick and I didn't even realize what day it was, what time it was, anything of the above. So, no, not right now. I'm going to wait for your recording. I know you're recording this. So just if you can send it out, then I'll listen and I will send you my stuff.
Yeah. So, and like I mentioned, it's like, it really is an opportunity. And I just want to tell that to people, like, don't think it as like what we see in the traditional sense or the colonial sense of sort of grant applications where you have to like read it with a fine tooth and comb. And if you spelled a word wrong, then you're in trouble. That's not what it is. We want to get this money into the hands of IBPOC researchers and students so that they can sort of launch a part of their career and an opportunity that's there. And it's also like one of those things where it will show that like there are researchers that are IBPOC that are out there. And that's what we wanted from the Forward project. And we hope it's something that we can continue on with larger pocket of money each year that it comes. And like I said, we're hoping that next year we'll be able to, like this year, that's 2024, that we do do that symposium to showcase some of that work as well. And my hopes for that symposium is to do it a little bit different, that we're not just bringing the people that, you know, are publishing left, right, and center, but the students like Minnie who are at the stage of doing contributing work and finding those things that we need, but don't have the avenue to present it, right? So that's sort of how we want to see it, is the community of giving and the opportunity to make mistakes without feeling like, oh, I made that mistake and now I forever can't be in that research industry, right? And so we're trying to really deconstruct that as much as we can. But can you submit for multiple topics / opportunities? Well, you have 250 words to use, so you could try your best if you want to, Claire. But I would say stick to one, and I would stick to your biggest ask is what I would say. Yeah. And I did mention that what we will do in terms of the funding is look at all the candidates and then ask after that and basically say, it looks like this is what you might need. Is this in the ballpark of the money that you have? There is only $14,000 to spread around all the applicants, right? So if we have one applicant, well, I'll give you a check for $14,000 if there are, you know, multiple, but the idea is to meet the needs of like what you specifically are needing for your project and for you to go forward in your, you know, research or academic career. So it is a big chunk of money if one person, but we're hoping that we get at least 7, which is still a big chunk of money. And we've asked for more for next year. So we're hoping that like it'll just build upon itself, but we definitely want to make sure that it doesn't seem hard to obtain. That's the important part of sort of how I approach the application for everybody, that it shouldn't be something that shouldn't take more than like a day, a few hours. I'm going to say a day because most of us overthink every application that we fill. So like it shouldn't take you long.
And my last question, and I should know this, but where do we find the application
I can
link?
repost it, but it should be on the bulletin on the thing, but I will send it to you.
Okay.
It literally it's on Simple Survey. Should be super easy to do. How do I do a chat? Show chat. Where are you, chat? There you go. And then I'll make sure Bryn also links it on to the actual email that he's going to send out to everyone with the recording itself too. But it should be super easy when you look at it. And if you've been intimidated to look at it for whatever reason, when you see it, it's super easy. There's probably spelling mistakes on it and there's all those things. I just needed to push it out is what I would say. And my email, I will write it on here as well. If you have any of my other personal emails, feel free to email me there as well. But I'm happy to, if you feel like you need someone to review your application, I'm happy to as well. And like I said, when we get to the webinar stage and whatnot, I'm also there to support you any other stages that you might need to bounce off. That's the purpose of this as well. Happy to beautify slides, find pictures for you, whatever, you know, like I said, ask, and I will try my best to do what I need for you. That's the purpose of this opportunity itself. Yeah. I could edit, can't say that I will edit very well. English is my second language, but I can try. But yeah, last round of any questions, concerns, any updates. And of course, I will be asking this whole process of how to make it easier, what clarifications need to be done, but otherwise, this is what it is.
Okay.
Again, next year for a different topic if we get it this year. Yes, I think that's what we said, because we understand that research is a continuum.
Yeah.
And I don't even think there will be a different topic. I don't think it really matters, but that's if they still hire me after this year, so. Anything
Awesome.
else?
Great. This is great. Thank you, Boomi, for all the work and
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for your kindness on
Okay,
offering your support.
okay. Yeah, email me if you need me. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.